Linda Gonzalez, alternate.
Can't hear. I can't hear either.
Supervisor Askew.
I'm here from Merced. Did you have audio? Yes, okay, good. Yep, here from Merced.
Supervisor Daniels.
Chief of Staff Kimberly Craig, alternate, present.
Thank you. City of Carmel by the Sea. Here. City of Delray Oaks. Here. City of Gonzales. Here. City of Greenfield. City of King City. City of Marina. City of Monterey. City of Pacific Grove. City of Salinas. City of Sand City. City of Seaside. City of Soledad. Ambag.
Here.
Caltrans District 5. Monterey Bay Air Resource District.
Present.
Monterey Regional Airport District.
Present remotely.
Monterey Salinas Transit.
Here.
City of Watsonville. CSUMB. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's rise to have the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yes, I. Okay, just as a thank you all for your patience as we assemble today. Just as an FYI, the microphones are down at this location today. They're expected to be up in the next 15 to 30 minutes. While that situation is being resolved, we're going to pass on this mic that I have to whoever wants to make a comment or discuss. And Lori's there. And Lori's over there to pass along as well. Thank you. With that, are there any, I'll go to item number 2. Are there any public comments? Remotely or in person? Seeing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull any item from the consent agenda today? Please go ahead, Mr. George.
Do you want me to raise questions now or just identify the items?
If you can identify the
Okay.
agenda item and the question.
Okay. 2 questions, I think, on each one. So one was 3.1.8, and my question there is: have we developed any estimated budget on what a new office is going to be, since this is starting the process? And I'm also wondering why we're limiting them to the scope where we're looking for a potential office building to downtown Salinas as one of the options instead of Salinas as a whole, because there could be more affordable options besides downtown. And then my other questions was on 3.3.1. And I know we're talking about the railway and the roadway, and there in some initial studies. I want to make sure that in the initial studies, we're still keeping an option on 4 lanes for a potential expansion on that strip between of Highway 1, even though I know it's not generally the Caltrans policy. It is the county's policy. It's still at this point. And my other question on that is on the stakeholders into there, if we're looking at including members of the public and the community as well, which I think it would be important to have their input.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Muck, do you want to take 3.1.8, please?
Respond to both of them if you like. Yes. Yes, you mentioned 3.1.8, but actually I think you were referring to 3.1.6, the TAMC Office Project Management Service contract. Sure. And the reason why we had identified those specific locations is that had been the point of discussion earlier at the board. I don't think we're precluding other locations necessarily, but in looking at locations that meet the needs of the agency, downtown Salinas is more meets the overall needs of the agency than other locations throughout the city. And then the marina location is a site that TAMC owns, so we wanted to look at that as an option. It doesn't preclude other options, but at the start, that's what we had identified. And then on, I believe we've budgeted $4 million, but that's just a dollar amount. So there's this contract will narrow that down and provide more information for the board to make a decision. And then your second question is on 3.3.1. And 4-laning Highway 1 has been a very contentious issue for a long time. This study won't preclude that, but it does include a lot of different stakeholders, including the Coastal Commission and local residents and other folks. So we work through that discussion, I think adding capacity to the corridor is something that has a lot of interest, and how that could be done is something that will be covered. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for those questions, Director Church. Anybody else have any questions? Ana Velasquez, please.
Thank you. And I had some questions on 3.1.6 as well, and thank you for some of those. I just have a follow-up in terms of the timeline. I know that there's a 2026 timeline, I believe, for the relocation. So one is that a hard date, or can that be extended if needed, given that obviously I know it's coming back to us for approval in terms of what option is going to be before us, but just wanted to make sure that we have an opportunity to be able to extend that if possible.
Our current lease expires January of 2028. So the reason why we're starting now is to provide some opportunity to explore various options, and some take longer than others. But if there is a situation where we need to go beyond January 2028, we would need to talk with our landlord and see if there's any opportunity for a month-to-month or other extension. But right now, the indication is they don't want to give us an additional lease. So that's the reason for this process.
Okay. Thank you. And then just my follow-up on the funding with the $4 million. So that's already been secured. So that's budgeted as part of the budget. And there is no restrictions on that. The money, we don't have any issues with us spending that money. I mean, it could sit there. We don't have an expenditure due date for those $4 million.
Correct. That is in the agency's undesignated reserve right now.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions too. Anybody else? Anybody remotely? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to move the consent agenda? Yeah, thank you. Any public comments? The motion was from Director Smith and seconded by Director Velasquez. Okay, let's have a roll call vote, please. Thank you.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Church. District 3, alternate Ramos. District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Aye.
District 5, alternate Craig.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Yes.
City of Delray Oaks.
Yes.
City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield. City of King City. City of Monterey,
Aye.
City of Pacific Grove,
Aye.
City of Salinas, City of Sand City, City of Soledad. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Elise. I'm just checking that this looks to be working great. We'll move on to item number 4, present the Transportation Agency Employee of the Quarter. This is for Mira Park.
Thank you. I have the honor to present the Employee of the Quarter certificate to Mira Park. I'll read it. It's hereby certified that Mira Park, Finance Officer Analyst, has been selected by her colleagues at the Transportation Agency for Monterey County as the Employee of the Quarter for January 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2025. The agency employees recognize Mira for her professionalism, diligence, knowledge, and I'd have to say enthusiasm, to add, for most notably for updating the agency's financial systems and helping organize our electronic invoice tracking system. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, it is our great pleasure to recognize Mira Park for her exemplary service.
Thank you for that. And I must say, Mira Park is from Pacific Grove, so go Pacific Grove. We'll move on to item number 5, legislative update. Who's on for it? Okay, Mr. Corey.
Christina Watson's going to introduce.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Christina Watson, Director of Planning, and we have Gus Curry on from Curry Consulting to provide a state legislative update, including cap and trade overview. And we will be asking for action today to approve positions on certain legislation, and he will review that as well. Thank you. Gus?
Thank you, Christina. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Gus Corey, President of Corey Consulting. Pleasure to be with you here virtually. I just prepared a short PowerPoint presentation on the cap and trade program, since that's been a high-profile item that the legislature is currently considering whether they want to extend. And so we just want to provide a little bit of context about the program and the direction that things are headed. And so I'll just, with TAMC's assistance here, we'll go through the slides. So next slide, please. So what is cap and trade? So the cap and trade program was built upon the foundation of the enactment of AB 32 in 2006, the Global Warming Act, which was landmark legislation. The first time anywhere, really, it was used as a sort of it was precedent setting on a global stage of really trying to attack reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that was done through AB 32. SB 862 provided the mechanism, the actual funding, because where AB 32 established sort of the principle that we should be trying to address global warming, SB 862 tries to provide the tools, and that's through the establishment of a cap and trade program of having credits that are purchased, where government sets the cap, and it's really the State Air Resources Board, and then companies are able to purchase these credits, these pollution credits, and then they're permitted to pollute up to a certain threshold. And this is intended to address 80% of all greenhouse gas emissions. And the reason being is that there are certain things that are sort of beyond the state's control, say with like the shipping industry. I mean, we have 50% of the nation's freight, imports and exports come through the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and then the Port of Oakland. Aviation is something also that's federally regulated. It's not a state regulation. So, and then just kind of take into account at the time back in 2014, some of the status of certain technologies where we now have advancements, say like in the hydrogen space, where electrolytic hydrogen, the way that you produce hydrogen is more environmentally friendly, where there's water vapor that's a byproduct instead of having actual more noxious gases, for example. But so they set 80% at the threshold of trying to tamp down on greenhouse gas emissions. And so the Air Resources Board on an annual basis sets the price for the purchase of the credits, and the program is designed to decline, meaning that as you do the mitigations, the program is intended to self sunset because you've reached, your target. There's nothing to mitigate against. So $4.4 billion is generated annually. And the goal of all of this is to go 40% of the 1990 levels by 2030. And so the level in 1990 of metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions was 431. And so they're trying to get about to about 258 metric tons by 2030. So next slide, please. So here's sort of a breakdown of the culprits for greenhouse gas emissions. You've got the transportation sector, which represents the biggest slice of the pie here. Industrial, stationary sources such as refineries are responsible. Electric production, that's both our import and export of electricity. The ag industry, of course, methane is a big culprit for producing greenhouse gas emissions. And so the Air Resources Board first attacked stationary sources, farming equipment, being able to swap out, high polluting diesel engines, for more eco-friendly equipment. And now they're really honed in on trying to take care of mobile sources, which essentially are, please. So this is just kind of a snapshot of the credits, the availability of the credits, how they're designed to go down. There's different allowances. You see like the top red piece, that's it's in order to stabilize the price. So the Air Resources Board conducts auctions twice a year where credit.
Mr. Curry, we're not able to hear you. You're frozen.
In addition to, say, the gas tax, there's about 27 cents at the pump that we currently pay from the administration of the cap and trade program. Governor Newsom had a special session to kind of try to hold the gas prices steady by requiring refineries to have a larger reserve to avoid the price spikes. And that was at the same time that the Air Resources Board says, hey, we want to raise the low carbon fuel standard fee to 60 cents, which would have been over what the gas tax is even for, that's affixed at the pump. And so, but you can see here by design, there's different allowances made per sector in order to get them to purchase the credit and have, again, that sort of ceiling of how much they could pollute. They could trade these credits. And ultimately, the program currently is set to expire in 2030. So that's the credits. Next slide, please. So this is the greenhouse gas emission reduction goal. This chart is from the Air Resources Board. So we started out, as I mentioned, back in 1990, it was about 431 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. We crept up to nearly 500. But, with the establishment of the cap and trade program, we were able to at least get to that 1990 number, about in 2015. But the target really is, again, to get to 40% less than that 1990 number. And so, that's the target that you see for 2030. And we're going to need to extend the program further to keep making progress because it's set to expire. Next slide, please. So here's a revenue breakdown of, as I mentioned, there's $4.4 billion that's generated on an annual basis. High-speed rail gets 25% of continuously appropriated for the project. It's the sole source of funding for that project. The sustainable communities, strategies and housing. These are programs run by the Strategic Growth Council. for housing programs, transit-oriented development and such. 20% of the pie, that's continuously appropriated. Transit capital, which TAMC has been a recipient for things like Pajaro Station. MST's received funding for the surf project. That gets 10% continuously appropriated. Then there's 5% for transit operations, which MST is an annual claimant recipient of those funds. And then 40% is subject to legislative appropriation. That's about $1.8 billion on an annual basis. And it goes for everything you could imagine under the sun. It's, again, to address methane or healthy forests or stormwater management, all sorts of different activities. There are a couple line items that are not reflected in here that are sort of extraneous, like a manufacturing tax credit. With wildfires becoming more prevalent, CAL FIRE does receive a small portion of funds. It's about $130 million, to do that. But for all intents and purposes, this is really the breakdown of how the funding works. Next slide, please. So what's next? There's the legislature is again currently debating about whether they want to extend the program, and all cards on the table. Under Governor Brown, a real big driver of why we did the cap and trade program was because he did want to find a stable, predictable source of funding for the high-speed rail project. When the high-speed rail project was originally contemplated, it had considered a third of the funding coming from the federal government, a third from the state, and a third from the private sector. It was about a $30 billion project when it was first conceived in the early 2000s. And that number's ballooned to over $100 billion. There are deficits. Right now, the president is withholding $6 billion worth of funding for the project as well. So it's putting more of an onus on the legislature to try to step up, at least in the short term, to try to continue funding, if not augment funding, to keep that project on schedule. So that's been a real big driver. It's a big, politically, it's the number one priority for labor as well. So there's been a lot of attention on what do we do with respect to high-speed rail. And so assuming that that gets solved, and the thinking is that it's best to continue to program and at least maintain status quo, there could be an overwhelming response to just the mere extension of the program. There's going to be less credits, so it's simply a supply and demand issue where now these credits are worth a premium, which means even more resources to augment some of the existing programs that we've benefited from, like the transit capital side or the transit operating side. And so there has been discussion, and several of our Central Coast delegation members, including Assemblymember Addis, Senator Laird, among others, Senator Lamone from Santa Barbara, San Luis, Assemblymember Hart from Santa Barbara. They're all on this working group for cap and trade. And so what they're looking at is, because the focus has been just predominantly on high-speed rail, is looking at the establishment of a true state rail network. And as you know, high-speed rail, even if they're successful, they can only get to Bakersfield, and then you have to take a bus. And so if we're able to create some resources, set aside or what have you, just merely continue to program, there could be an opportunity to realize more commuter rail service or intercity rail passenger service along the Central Coast, where currently, we know that between Gilroy and San Luis Obispo, there really isn't any passenger rail service. And so that's something that's being contemplated by the legislature. The working group and the subcommittees have to report to the main budget committee by May 4th. And the hope is that, as I said, at a minimum, they'll continue the program, give that certainty. It'll send a signal to the market, and then it will help with our respective submissions. Like, we just got an award late last year for to be able to build the King City station to help out folks also at 400 Liggett. And so, it's possible that this could drag on into August and early September before the legislature adjourns for the year. But that's sort of the status of the cap and trade program. So I'll stop right there, Mr. Chair, and see if you or board members have any questions or comments.
Any comments from the board or questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next one, Christina.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, then there's only 3 bills for consideration of action. The first bill, AB 1058. This bill, it's a bill that's introduced annually. It's intended to really suspend motor vehicle taxes, which that's our bread and butter. If there isn't a gas tax that's collected, that impacts your ability to address local streets and roads, Caltrans' ability to address maintenance on the state highway system, and our ability to utilize our portion of the gas tax for, all things multimodal, mass transit guideways, active transportation projects, anything on the state highway system. So we're asking for an opposed position there. AB 1070, this bill would require, it would prohibit a transit district from compensating a member of the governing board unless that member demonstrates personal use of a transit system. That's, it's difficult for certain jurisdictions where, depending on where the member lives, in order to utilize the service. And so MST asked us to bring this to the board's attention and ask for an opposed position on this one. And then lastly, Senate Bill 30. This bill has to do with Senator Cortese, he's chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. He wrote an op-ed piece earlier this year, and he was frustrated that Caltrain had sold off older rolling stock, which we believe might have been Tier 1 equipment, because they've now electrified their system. They sold that to Peru, the country of Peru. And the senator was displeased about, well, you're not improving greenhouse gas emissions globally as a result. And so he was looking just to do away with all diesel. And it's not practical because the best available technology for all intents and purposes is Tier 4 locomotives and rolling stock. Those are hard to come by too, if you're lucky to access some of that. And we're still waiting. There are a couple, Stadler, Siemens, they are building electric cars, but there's concerns with range, the cost, the procurement timelines. It takes forever to procure some of their cars and locomotives. And so this could delay our ability to get service up and running as we continue to pursue funding. So we're asking for an amendment here to exempt at least the Tier 4 locomotives. So it'll make it a little bit easier for us to coordinate with the California State Transportation Agency and other partners, Caltrans among others, to try to help establish service along the Central Coast. So I'll
If I
stop
could
right.
add to that. Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Gus. The first 2 bills that Gus mentioned were discussed at the executive committee meeting. SB 30 came up after the last executive committee meeting, so we didn't have a chance to talk about it with them.
I have a question and then I'll pass it along. For SB 30, just from my understanding, Tier 1 to Tier 4 local, is Tier 4 the highest or the cleanest? Is there a Tier 5 too?
No.
And is there any in Tier 4 from the reason for this bill is for decommission, is essentially eliminating greenhouse gases. I mean, making sure that we're correct on the spectrum with GHG throughout, whether it's here or in Peru. Why was Tier 4 not excluded to begin with?
It's a great question. I think it's because of the emergence of zero emission technology. It just, we've been talking to the senator's office to provide more context, and I don't think he had fully factored in the current inventory. But tier four final, which is the absolute cleanest, that was, I think the ARB had approved of those in 2014. And again, it takes a while. And part of the problem too, Mr. Chair, is that if we don't fulfill the useful life of having the rolling stock, we wind up getting dinged for that. So whether that's from the state or the feds. And so it's really difficult for us to, and that's what kind of keeps happening, even on the bus side, by the way, where you're asked to get away from, gas, and then diesel, and then it's CNG, and then it's hydrogen. And then it's really hard to kind of keep up with ever-changing regulations that don't meet the reality of our ability to procure that type of equipment. And so I think, what we're suggesting would create that higher floor where if he was to accept the amendment to exempt tier four, you're basically eliminating 99% of all greenhouse gas emissions because it is more than 10 times cleaner than what a tier one locomotive emits.
Okay, thank you for that. Any board questions?
Just a comment, so I appreciate the report, Gus. But regarding the diesel rolling stock, and this is where I just want to express my frustration. I understand our goals. I'm in line with the goals that we're looking for at the state level. But as you just showed, how so much money goes to the high-speed rail, which will provide this one short little link, as opposed to making sure that California has a very robust passenger rail system. These are the types of legislative moves that curtail that. While the tier one diesel may be a pollutant, how many cars would have that removed from the road if there was consistent and reliable passenger rail service to get where you need? And the fact is, the ability for us to get rolling stock, even if tomorrow we were told on the Central Coast that we could put in intercity rail, passenger rail service between Salinas and San Luis Obispo, the ability for us to even find rolling stock to make that happen is going to be extremely difficult. So just hearing that usable stock went to Peru, regardless of the emission state, and not used here first to expand and create that reliable service is extremely frustrating. Look, I hear more and more people want more options when it comes to mobility. We have a great transit service, but what we're lacking is the intercity rail service to get from place to place easily. So yeah, I agree with the recommendations are, but this is extremely frustrating. And I wish the state would finally make up their mind on what's actually truly important. Because I say it is that robust rail network, and then you peel off from there. Because once we get that rail, and excuse me, Chair, for going a little long, but once we have that rail network in place, the rolling stock manufacturers will ramp up theirs because they know they're going to see a consistent need going in the future. And right now, California is not providing that consistent need yet. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Labar. Any other questions? Yes, Director Velasquez.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gus, for that information. I have a question in terms of, obviously, I understand the frustration, but on the tier four, what other sources are being designated as clean energy? I know that obviously we have an electrification goals for some of our fleets and for the buses, but I know that there's been a lot of discussion and I know some frustration in regards to other sources of clean energy that we can use that we're really not investing in, such as hydrogen, and we don't have that infrastructure, but is there a possibility also to be able to look at other sources that are clean, that are still clean energy, may cost a little bit more down the line, but that we need to start investing on now if we really want to have different alternative modes of transportation that are essentially green.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, if I may, that's a great question. And hydrogen was something that a lot of folks were excited about. However, I don't know if folks saw about, I think the news came out last week, if not the week before, that British Petroleum is pulling out of the hydrogen market. It's too expensive for them to be able to manufacture, and the market just quite isn't there. And I think under the new federal administration also, they're not as high on some of the alternative fuels. And so that's kind of had a little bit of a chilling effect also on the market. But yeah, we work with clients where, on the passenger rail side, they were looking at running hydrogen electric, hybrid rolling stock, and even trying to create their own hydrogen facility. So, and now that's kind of been turned upside down. And so the only thing that folks have been leaning on more, I will say, is the zero emission, technology being electric at this point. And as I mentioned, Stadler, Siemens, they're the two main providers. I think, and Christina can correct me if I'm wrong, I think outside of Caltrain, I want to say San Bernardino might be the other entity in the state that has some rail cars, but we're scratching the surface. And so again, it's just, your points are well taken. It's going to take time for us to be able to evolve and then implement, these types of newer technologies.
Yeah, I think as far as San Bernardino goes, they got a grant through the TIRCIP, the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, to test out hydrogen rolling stock, and that test is still ongoing, and they're finding a fair number of hurdles in the process, but it's in development right now down in San Bernardino County.
Thank you, Director Velasquez. Any other questions or comments? I didn't want to ask Mr. Nakori, is it possible to take on some of these comments or frustrations and also pass it along?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, pending your action this morning, it's something that we could definitely memorialize in our letter on Senate Bill 30. So happy to work with TAMC staff on constructing that letter.
All right, that'll be helpful. Thank you. I didn't check in on our remote audience. Anything remotely? Supervisor Askew?
Yeah, thank you. And Gus, thank you so much for just staying on top of all of these issues and bringing them to us. We've had a chance to talk in quite a bit of detail about sort of the broader cap and trade conversation in an executive committee. And I just want to appreciate the detailed presentation and keeping the rest of the board updated and apprised. I think these really are critical issues for Monterey County specifically, given that we do have coastal rail available to us and the significant commitment that we've made in Monterey County and at the Transportation Agency for coastal rail, and the way that cap and trade has been committed to rail as a solution. I think there's a huge opportunity for us right now, and that given the way that we have our state delegation engaged in this conversation, we are positioned really uniquely to be a part of this negotiation. So ensuring that everyone around our TAMC table understands the intricacies of what's playing out right now is so important. So I would just encourage the rest of our board, if you have additional questions or if you need to get a one-on-one or a more detailed update on how our role, how we fit into this bigger picture, please don't hesitate to ask for a more detailed synopsis. I know it's taken me a couple of times to hear the information to make sure for me to really understand sort of where I fit and where we fit and how the historically this all has come together. But now that I'm seeing it, how the whole pieces come together, I definitely think that we are positioned really incredibly uniquely in the state picture. And I think there's some significant opportunity and significant timing that is relevant here. So thanks for the presentation, Gus, and just again an invitation to the rest of our board to really engage, make sure that you feel comfortable talking about this, so that if you find yourself in a place where you're able to make the case to our state delegates or others, you're comfortable having that conversation. If you're not, ask more questions so that we can bring everyone up to speed, so that we can all be champions of the same messaging. But thank you again for the presentation today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Director Askew. If there are no other further comments or questions, let me go out to the public. Anybody in the room or remotely wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, we have an action here to adopt the positions on the proposed legislation. Motion from Director Labar. Second from Director Velasquez. I may have a roll call vote, please.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Aye.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Aye.
District 3, alternate Ramos. District 4, Supervisor Askew.
Aye.
District 5, alternate Craig.
Aye.
City of Carmel by the Sea.
Yes.
City of Delray Oaks. City of Gonzales. City of Greenfield. City of King City.
Aye.
City of Monterey. City of Pacific Grove. City of Salinas. City of Soledad. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Eloise. We'll move on to the next item, agenda item 6. This is the Measure X 7th year audit results in the Measure X annual report. Teresa.
Good morning, everyone. When we went out to the voters nearly 9 years ago in 2016 and asked them to support Measure X, one of the things we assured them is that we would form a Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee. Now, that committee is important because it serves as another layer of transparency to the public that we, TAMC, the county, and the cities are in compliance with the terms of the ordinance. And so each year, one of the responsibilities of that committee is to conduct an annual audit and then to report their findings to the full committee, to the public, and to this body. And so Kevin Dayton, who is the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee, is here today to present to you their annual audit that they conducted for fiscal year 23-24. So with that, I'm going to step aside and ask him to present his findings to you.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, board members. Yes, I am the chair of the Oversight Committee this year. I was the chair for its first 2 years in 2017 and 2018. Actually, this report was done under the leadership of Norm Groot, who was the chair last year. Just to put things in context, I know some of you were actually involved with the Measure X campaign back in 2016. That was the 5th try to get a sales tax here in Monterey County. And you may remember how poor the roads were, highways and streets. I mean, it's very obvious that there was a need for funding. Also, the argument was made that Los Angeles and the Bay Area, with their existing sales taxes, get the matching grants from the state and the federal government, and we in Monterey County don't. So on the 5th try, it got the 2/3 approval and was put into place, but it barely got 2/3. It was barely approved. And one thing during the campaign, people would say to me, Kevin, I don't know why you're doing Measure X. Those local governments, they waste the money. You can't track where it's going. It's not accountable. This is just a mistake. So the committee was, one of the things that many TAMC leaders were saying is create an oversight committee and make it broad. And some people were saying you'd never be able to handle an oversight committee that has 20 members. Most of those oversight committees for school districts can't even handle it with 5 members. But no, we have an excellent group of 20 members and 20 alternates, and it's from all different areas, geographical areas, parts of the community. And I think it's been very effective because every single interest group is involved and then can go and report back to their organizations or peers what has been going on. And my goal, thinking in my mind as somebody who has been on this committee since its foundation and chair now for the 3rd year, is I want any there should be no valid complaints coming from the public about how TAMC is spending its money. One of the things we did in our first year is create this chart. And if you look at the ordinance that you passed in 2016 for Measure X, there were a bunch of things that each of the jurisdictions, the 12 cities in the county, have to do to be fully in compliant. And these are all the checks and balances so that nobody is spending money inappropriately. It's all accounted for. We got the maintenance of effort, so nobody, takes money and says, oh, now that I got the money from TMC, I'll just move some funding over to this area here instead and take care of it. And we did have, when we started this, I remember that first year I presented to the TMC board, there were some people complaining about that. They were uncomfortable about how we were having this accountability chart up. But we're still doing it today, and the committee has no intention of getting rid of it. And for the first year ever, last year, we have 100% compliance from all 12 cities and the counties, which says to me, apparently this works. And anybody out there who says, oh, the money's not accountable, we're on top of this. And not only do we review all the material, but there's also an auditor who does this too, a professional outside auditor. One thing we've added this year, if we could go to the next page, is something I believe actually was originated with Supervisor Church and came to our committee eventually. And the idea, some people said, you know what, are some of the local governments hoarding the money? In other words, they're collecting it and not actually spending it and putting it there into their accounts. We don't think so. And in fact, we had a long discussion about this because, as you know, if you have a expensive project, you may need to accumulate money for a couple years to be able to pay as you go on it. But we did put this in, which I think it was unanimously supported by the committee. It shows you how much money is being spent, how much is not spent, how much is outstanding, and it provides yet another data-based report that shows how the money is being spent. So I encourage all of you, if you ever encounter a constituent who says, TAMC wastes their money, or we can't track where this money is going. I know some of you still hear this all the time because there are certain people who just parrot this over and over again. You can tell them that is not correct. We have an outstanding oversight committee that tracks it. We've got the report that goes out to everybody. And you know what? You can have them call me too if they really are going to give you some time about it. And I'll tell them to do is show up at an oversight committee meeting and see how it really works. So one thing is there are some transportation agencies that I think are not quite as accountable as this one is, but this one is excellent. I think the board and the committee has done a great job, and this is now before you. Teresa, do you want me to take any questions or pass back to you?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yes, chair's discretion.
Yes, any questions from the board or any comments? Supervisor Church?
Thank you. Thank you. This is one of the great things, with Measure X, this accountability. And I have to say, because of the success and the transparency that this has proven to show over the years, it's one of the things that the board is looking at in terms of Measure AA, which is approximately the same amount of money, and having that transparency and that involvement from the community and from citizens and seeing how tax dollars are spent. And I appreciate the greater detail onto here. I know that was brought up by the advisory committee last year, and seeing that being addressed. One request though for the future, and that would be, it would be great to have a copy of this shared to the board prior to a meeting, because we didn't get a copy. And so it's kind of literally almost 30,000 feet view of this right now, not having a chance to really look at it to, give other compliments or raise any other questions.
You're correct, and thank you. That's on my part, because the suggestions and the revisions that the Oversight Committee requested then needed to go to our graphic designers, because one of the things I haven't shared with you, although you probably know it, this is their annual report gets included into the TAMC annual report, which is going to be mailed out in May. And so we needed to revise and make changes to this chart. And so it was not available to put it in your packet. It literally came in, I think, Monday. So, but you will have it and we will post it.
Director Velasquez.
So I think we're all looking to make sure that we're accountable for the public tax dollars that are coming to our cities. So on this one, do we have a copy? I know that it's going to be included, so I'm glad to hear that. It'll be included in the annual report for TAMC. Do we also get an can we get an electronic copy of this also? Because I think this is an amazing tool to be able to share with our constituents. We may see it, obviously, but I think it's being able to review the information and be able to really succinctly provide our residents with information of how funds are being used under the Measure X.
We can send this out to you today after this board meeting, so we will send it electronically to you, the board members, and then it can also will be posted on our TAMC website.
Is there an outreach plan for this other than just putting it on the TAMC annual report? Do we?
The annual report is being mailed out to each individual in Monterey County like we do every year. It's also posted on our website. And if there's any other efforts that you would like to see, then certainly let us know. But it's mailed to every single resident.
Yes. And just to follow up, there are links included on this report to each of the individual jurisdictions reports. So when you go and talk with your local cities, there's a more detailed report that the city provided as a requirement of the Measure X that you can talk about the specific projects that were done within the city. This is a great overview, but that detailed information is really useful for individual cities. And in addition to mailing these out and having it available electronically, I use this extensively year-round as a tool to talk with community members when I go to Rotary meetings or other places, just to talk about what TAMC does and what Measure X does. So it's a really useful item for me to have and others in the staff when we do our public outreach.
Yes, Director Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A comment, but a question. Let me make my comment first, if I could. One of the things that when Measure P and S were happening in Monterey, the accountability to the residents was very important. And so we actually accomplished that. With each project, there are signs that go up. Many of the public works vehicles are marked with Measure P and Measure X, so the projects are paid for that. So with Measure X, marrying that with our local initiatives for roadway work, we also included this project brought to you by Measure X. And that's on our city trucks, and it's on the signs with projects when it goes out to the contractors for street work. Then we have the signs that are recognizing Measure X and Measure S or Measure P. So the public funds are advertised in that manner. And so Kevin lives in Monterey, and wherever you go in Monterey right now, you're seeing work. And those are projects that are brought to you because of Measure S and Measure X combined. So significant amount of roadway work. Kevin, the question is for the publics to know, how often do you meet and where do you meet? So the public could attend and maybe we could recruit additional future Measure X oversight members.
Sure. Well, Teresa, first I'll give you the chance to answer that this is a staff type thing, but we have the answer for you.
So the Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee meets quarterly, and we have designated positions on that committee, and so we are certainly looking for folks would be nominated, and those nominations would come to you. You would be officially appointing them as a board. Right now, we have some vacancies, particularly for youth advocates. So we're looking for a college student to fill a position. If anybody has interest or seeking someone that might want to serve on the community, certainly I would be the point person for that. I could tell you what vacancies are available and then ask your assistance in getting nominations and then presenting those nominations to you as a body to approve and appoint them to serve.
And I do have an addition regarding the signs. You'll also notice that Monterey Peninsula Unified School District puts up signs at each of those projects. I'm the chair of their oversight committee. And of course, you'll see the SB1 signs on major state highways. As far as the committee, we could put on the committee agenda, I guess, to send a recommendation to you about signage. Ultimately, that would be, I guess, your vote to decide if you wanted to put signs up at your particular sites. It would highlight for people that Measure X is being spent on things.
Just a slight correction. That is a requirement. So any Measure X funded project is required to put up notices and signs saying that it was funded by Measure X. And so that's part of the requirement.
Director George?
I wonder if you could, on these vacancies, maybe send an email out onto that. I would like to post it on social media because actually, when we get a copy of this, I want to post it as well. And it seems like a good time to maybe try to seek some recruitment for those positions.
Absolutely.
In addition, I'm would just like to get an idea of the preparation of this report and the mailing of it. What is the total cost onto that? Do we have any idea on what that is?
Yes, so we have the graphic designer, we have an on-call graphic designer that's responsible for putting that together, and that's budgeted through Measure X and also reserve funds. And so that's part of the contract that they do for us each year. And then we have the additional mailing costs that's separate. We do which was in your packet, in fact, today. So the mailing cost has gone up this year. As you all know, postage has gone up. So the cost is roughly, I believe it's $58,000 to mail out this year. That's the estimate. And then the graphic design, the printing is also included in those costs as well. So that would be the cost of printing and mailing out the annual report.
That's all in the 60,000, or that's an addition?
That's an addition.
But
So the graphic
We'll be looking
designer,
at under 100,000 for.
yes,
everything. Okay.
that's correct.
That's all I was just wanting to get an idea.
Yes,
I think it's well
thank you.
spent for public information.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I have a question and a couple of comments too. The annual report that does go in English and Spanish, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple of comments. I would say it's really fantastic to see all cities are compliant with this. And I would say kudos to all of us and all your staff members for making us look good here by having a report which says yes and compliant on all aspects. So thank you to all of you. And then I would like to thank the committee itself, the chair, the 20-odd members and the 20-odd alternates. It is no small task to pull everybody together and get everybody on the same side and to have all of these published. So I appreciate that. And thank you for putting this together for us.
You're welcome, and we'll pass that on to the committee.
Thank you. Any public comments for item number 6? Remotely or in person? Seeing none, I'll move on to, there is no action here, so I'll move on to agenda item number 7. Receive a presentation on the Monterey County Regional Vision Zero Plan. Ms. Conlon?
Good morning, Vice Chair and board members. My name is Amelia Conlon. I'm a senior transportation planner with the agency, and I'm here to present to you on the kickoff of the Monterey County Regional Vision Zero Action Plan. Get my clicker figured out here. So this morning I will cover what is Vision Zero, why this plan is important, and what it will cover. I'll talk a little bit about the safe systems approach that is being used to develop this plan, our project tasks and timeline, and our next steps. So what is Vision Zero? Vision Zero is an international movement that's aimed to eliminate severe injury and fatality collisions. It was started in Sweden in the 1990s and since then has spread throughout the world. And today, numerous US cities have adopted Vision Zero goals. And this plan is important because not only do we have a traffic safety crisis at the national level, we have a traffic safety problem here in Monterey County as well. Every year, on average, 46 people lose their lives on Monterey County roadways, and 310 people are severely injured while walking, biking, or driving in Monterey County. And that's nearly one person every day who doesn't make it home safely. I'm sure that many of you have been impacted by traffic collisions on our roadways. I'm sure that you know people who have been impacted. And these numbers are not just statistics. Each one of these is a person, it's a story, it's our friends and neighbors. And so our goal with this plan is to improve safety and make sure that everyone gets home safely. This is a heat map of our severe injury and fatality collisions in Monterey County. And this is just to say that while there are more collisions in the most densely populated areas, this is a countywide issue. We see these collisions happening on our city streets, our state highways, and our rural county roadways. So what will this plan cover? The Vision Zero Action Plan will include goals, strategies, and projects to help us guide investments. We know that there is never enough money, enough staff time to do everything that we want to do. And so this plan will help us focus our limited resources on the areas with the biggest safety needs. It will also give us a project list of projects that are eligible for state and federal funding, including through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program through the U.S. Department of Transportation, which has funded the development of this plan. And then ultimately, the goal of these projects and strategies is to save lives. This plan will cover all roadways within Monterey County, and that includes city streets, county roadways, and state highways. We appreciate Caltrans being a partner on this plan, except for the jurisdictions of Salinas, Monterey, and Seaside, which have already adopted or are currently developing their own safety action plans. The final Regional Vision Zero Action Plan will include an umbrella regional plan for countywide recommendations, as well as individual chapters for each participating jurisdictions with a prioritized project list. So specifically, this plan will include both engineering solutions for measures to reduce the likelihood of a severe or fatal collision, and that includes wider shoulders, roundabouts, traffic calming, and protected bike lanes, as well as non-engineering recommendations for things like education and encouragement programs to address issues like impaired driving and speeding, and to encourage everyone to use our roadways safely. The plan will also include elements that are specifically required through the Safe Streets and Roads for All funding source, notably a leadership commitment to a zero goal. So I will be back before you with a draft goal for a timeline for us to achieve zero serious injuries and fatalities on Monterey County roadways. We know that progress towards this goal is never perfect, but it's meant to put a stake in the ground to say that these serious injuries and fatalities are not acceptable and that we should be doing everything that we can to eliminate them. The program also requires the involvement of a committee or task force, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, as well as community engagement and collaboration. We are required to do a data-driven safety analysis. Thank you. So the recommendations in this plan will be guided by the collision data. And then finally, progress and transparency. So not only sharing the final plan when it's available, but tracking our future progress towards our Vision Zero goals. So the safe systems approach that will be used to develop the plan is meant to be a holistic look at how to improve traffic safety. Historically, traffic collisions have been looked at as an engineering problem with an engineering solution, and the safe systems approach acknowledges that there is more involved to eliminating fatalities and improving safety. This diagram represents the safe system approach, and the wedges within the wheel are called the safe systems element. Starting with safe road users, which is the idea that encouraging everyone to use our roadways safely is a really important element of improving safety. Safe vehicles is the area that we have the least control over here in Monterey County, but there is work being done at the state level and the national level to improve the safety of vehicles for people both in and outside of vehicles. Safe speeds is really important. If you can reduce the speed at which a collision occurs, you really increase the chance of survival. Safe roadways is the engineering piece, roadway design. And then post-crash care is both ensuring that people have the care they need after a collision, but also ensuring that first responders are safe when they're at the scene. And so again, this is to emphasize that this is more than an engineering problem. It really takes all of us to acknowledge that we have a shared responsibility to keep ourselves and others safe on our roadways. This model is the Swiss cheese model of redundancy. And it's meant to say that all of the different safe system elements can help to eliminate collisions. And only when all of these different elements fail is when we see a severe injury or fatality. So we're incorporating the safe systems approach into this plan because it aligns with international best practices, including what's been adopted by the US Department of Transportation, because it provides a more proactive and holistic approach that allows us to not just react to where collisions have occurred, but look at high-risk areas where there's the potential for future collisions. And also because it creates new partnerships. In our task force meetings, we've had law enforcement, public health, public works, fire departments, community organizations, all in the same room to talk about our safety issues. And those conversations will continue and will form the basis of the recommendations in this plan. And then finally, the Safe Systems approach aligns with federal grant programs, particularly the Safe Streets and Road for All program that is funding this plan. So to start our process of developing the Vision Zero Action Plan, we start with understanding existing conditions. That includes reviewing the collision data, looking at equity data and how different populations in our county are impacted. Our first round of community engagement will ask people about their biggest safety concerns in their communities. And then we're reviewing the existing plans, policies, and projects throughout the county. All of that information will be used to develop a picture of the needs in Monterey County, including the high injury network, which are the segments of roadway where the highest number of collisions occur, and our emphasis areas, which are the most common types of collisions in Monterey County. So it could be things like speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving. That understanding of the needs will be used to develop solutions, including a toolbox of future strategies, a prioritized list of projects, strategies, and policies for each community. And we'll go back out to the community for another round of public engagement to share the draft recommendations and get feedback. And then the final step will be to write up all of that information into the draft and final Vision Zero Action Plan. Most of this work is happening this year in 2025. So we are starting our public outreach this spring, and we'll have our second phase of public outreach in the fall. We have a great consultant team on board, DKS and Associates and Kimley Horn, who are currently working on the data analysis, and we'll be starting on recommendations soon. And then starting this fall and through summer of 2026, we will work on developing the draft and final plans for each agency. So a little bit more about community outreach. We have public meetings coming up in most of our jurisdictions in May, and we will also be doing pop-up outreach at existing events like farmers markets in each jurisdiction. And then we've established 3 task force groups to guide the development of this plan. And those are divided between different regions of Monterey County. So we have a regional group that's looking at countywide issues, a little bit of a focus on North County and the unincorporated county. We have a Monterey Peninsula task force that's focused on the peninsula cities, and then a South County task force as well. Here are our workshop dates, and we will share the flyers out to you when these are finalized, but these are all coming up in the second half of May. And our next steps are, again, the public workshops coming up soon. We would really appreciate your help getting the word out about these, and we would love to see you at these meetings. And then I will be back before you in the fall with a presentation on the crash trends for the county and our draft recommendations for the plan. That concludes my presentation. There's no action item, but I welcome any questions.
Yes, Board Member Wilbur.
Thank you for the presentation, very much enjoyable. As you're going through the process, especially with the forgot what the stakeholder meeting was called.
Task force.
Task force. Under existing conditions, will you also be identifying impediments to the implementation?
There will be an implementation plan as part of the draft and final Vision Zero plan. And so we'll be looking at things like what can we afford with available revenues? What are the challenges to implementing the various strategies? So yes, that is something we'll be looking at.
Good, because the one thing I want to make sure that gets into that plan is at the local level, when it comes to safe speed, so that was the first thing I saw, is our inability to control that. Unfortunately, we have to go through the analysis every 5 years to enforce our speed laws, and then we have to find out whatever the average is and take the 85% level. But with that formula, you could see that creep up. I do know that some infrastructure placements can help keep speed slow, but I would definitely want to see that as an impediment to our ability locally to make sure that we can put in safe speeds when we see those things happening, because that is a definite concern of mine, is that's one of those things beyond our control. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Director Velasquez?
Yeah, thank you for the information. So I know the report has information in terms of how it aligns with the Safe Streets and Roads project. But I have a couple of questions in terms of just the whole collaboration and comprehensive plan. I know from the Safe Streets project, we obviously have a lot of data for each of our cities in terms of collisions, pedestrians, traffic impacts, some of the roadways that are most impacted with some of the traffic issues. So I guess I'm just having a little difficulty understanding, is this a subsection of the Safe Streets and Roads for All? Because I know a lot of that data has been available. At least the report that I saw for our city was pretty detailed in terms of safety, pedestrian collisions, traffic collisions, and also included goals or included different recommendations on, what can we do to mitigate that? So I guess one is, how does all that work together? And then also my other question is on the task force that you have that have been established, have those been established, and who are the members and how were they selected? So I'll stop there and then I have one more.
I think you may be thinking about Soledad's local roadway safety plan. Is that right? And so this plan will build off of the work that's already been done in some of the jurisdictions. It will add some additional components, and we will also be looking at countywide safety issues. So there'll be recommendations for strategies that TAMC or other jurisdictions could implement for things like countywide safety campaigns. But yes, we will be using any safety work that's already been done in the cities to support this plan. And in terms of membership on the task force, we invited public works staff from each jurisdiction, fire department staff, police department staff, and then any community organizations that are involved with traffic safety issues. And that's been the primary membership in the task force.
Thank you. My last question, if I may, Chair, is are you also, as part of this plan, I know that you have different partners, but I also know that CHP was doing a lot of work in Monterey County roadways, and they have a lot of data in regards to some of the collisions. And I was really, I know when we reviewed the data, there was a lot of indication that a lot of the collisions and fatalities were for individuals under the age of 30 as well, and a lot of male drivers. So is all that going to be factored in? Are we going to be working with Caltrans, CHP, the school districts as well as part of this holistic plan?
Yes, yeah. So Caltrans and CHP are partners. CHP has been involved in our task force meetings, and we'll be doing outreach to the school districts as part of this process.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Director Barron.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Conlon, for your presentation. One ask first, could you email the presentation to all the board members? Would that be a possibility? And second, could you go back a couple slides to let's see, that one. No, yeah. So I see that Carmel, just to use me as an example, Carmel's Thursday, May 22nd. What is that meeting?
So we will
Like-
have a community workshop, and the primary question for community members will be about their biggest safety concerns in their community. We'll also be sharing information about the project, overview of the plan, what is Vision Zero, and then trying to hear about the biggest safety needs. And then we'll go back to those communities in the fall and try and reflect what we heard to share the draft recommendations and get their feedback.
So I assume it's sort of my responsibility to get my community out to that May 22nd meeting.
We would love your partnership, definitely not solely your responsibility, but would definitely love your support.
And are these meetings like in city halls or other places, or, and is it, who's getting people out to these 7 meetings as it is? Like my staff members, or like what's the process for getting the public out to comment on what their vision of the safety is?
We will work with each jurisdiction on that. So we're working with your city staff, with law enforcement, police departments. In some cases, there's a community engagement person within the city. We will use all of our TAMC communication channels to share this out, do a press release, encouraging people to attend. And then if you have any other ideas for the best ways to get the word out in your community, please send them my way.
Okay, we can deal with that offline, but if you could email the presentations out, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, I saw a hand. Yes, Mr. Sidoric.
Thank you. Just wanted to offer up to you, MST keeps very detailed geocoded information on any type of incident that's going on between an MST vehicle and other vehicles or pedestrians. So that can be made available to you in a GIS format.
Thank you. Yes, we have been in touch with your staff about that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Director Smith.
Yeah, I wanted to connect some of the dots because I would imagine some board members might be thinking, well, how do you get the data? And Anna, you brought up the significant amount of data that Solid Ed might get. So there's this thing called SWITRS, and I know you know, it's the statewide integrated traffic reporting system. So one of the things that's required by any law enforcement officer that takes any incident involving a collision or a hazard is reported with a standard that is regulated by SWITRS. And that SWITRS manual is about like that. And every cop from the first probably year is studying how they report what incidents need to be reported through a SWITRS standard. And it's that the city engineers and the city officials can gather the data out of the SWITRS system that then assist communities with applications for grants, for recognition of where they have problems. And it all starts with the reporting system called SWITRS. So that's why the information is there. It's just asking the right question to gather the data based on incidents that occur with CHP or your local jurisdictions from every cop 24/7, 7 days a week for any incident involving traffic gets pushed into that SWITRS system, and that information is pulled out and available. And so I just wanted to highlight that's where it starts. So nothing's getting lost as long as a police report's being filed. And that's where it starts. So it's the local jurisdictions committed. If there's a collision, if there's an injury, if there's an incident, vehicle, pedestrian, commercial vehicle, all that data goes into SWITRS based off of that police report. So it's very, very rich data that's used by any city engineer or county engineer and is vital for applying for grants to improve roadway conditions and reduce safety. So I just wanted to highlight the technical piece.
Thank you.
And I took a lot of those accident reports.
Yes, Director Velasquez.
Request here, especially on the PowerPoint presentations, and this is separate, but if we can get copies of the PowerPoint presentations in our packet, that would be really helpful as well.
Yes, Todd,
It is frequent that we aren't ready with our PowerPoint presentations until the day before the meeting. And including them in the packet that's distributed, we're required to be ready almost 2 weeks before the meeting. So what we do is post them on our website the day before, and we can certainly forward them to the board after the meeting.
Thank you, Todd. Any other questions? I do have a couple too, so please bear with me. So typically, like plans, especially an overarching plan like this, has to intersect with other plans that any city or jurisdiction has. Is that being taken into account here?
Yes, so our consultant team is reviewing all of the existing plans and policies that impact traffic safety, and will build off of the policies and projects that are already in place, and then suggest changes in some cases.
Okay, great. And then the agenda item actually starts off by saying that we're preparing these Vision Zero plans for each jurisdiction in Monterey County. It will include Vision Zero action plans for each jurisdiction in Monterey County that does not currently have one. So obviously some of these counties, or sorry, jurisdictions have one. What happens to all of those cities or jurisdictions? Do they participate in this process at all?
In some cases, we have, especially on the peninsula, there's so much multi-jurisdictional with police and fire, that jurisdictions that serve multiple cities on the peninsula. The cities of Salinas and Monterey are not directly participating in the plan, but we will roll up their Vision Zero plans into the final document, reference them so that we have a complete picture of jurisdictions in Monterey County.
But so that I'm clear, these jurisdictions will not participate in this process.
That's correct.
Okay. And any of these jurisdictions, well, any cities that are participating in these jurisdictions overall, like kind of safety goals, like Pacific Grove, right? I'll just take Pacific Grove. Pacific Grove has, the fire department is through Monterey. So is Pacific Grove going to participate?
Pacific Grove is a participating jurisdiction, and so that's an example where the fire chief from Monterey participated in our task force, because while the city of Monterey is not participating in the plan, the fire department serves multiple jurisdictions, so they are still involved.
Okay. And last question, so noting that Salinas, for example, is not there on this list. So there's no workshop in Salinas.
That's correct. The city of
so
Salinas.
This is the final list, so in other words.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, go ahead, Director Sandoval.
So I'm sure our staff probably has an answer for that, but why is the city of Salinas not participating?
The city of Salinas adopted a Vision Zero plan in, I want to say 2022. So they've gone through this process already to look at their highest collision areas and develop recommendations. And so we didn't want to recreate the wheel for them.
But you're compiling the data from that plan with this. I mean, there's no benefit for us directly participating, or is there a downside to us not participating?
I think there's not a need because you've already gone through this process. We are looking at countywide data when we look at things like the highest collision trends for things like impaired driving, for speeding, for distracted driving. So we are looking at countywide data cumulatively, but we will not be developing recommendations specifically for Salinas because the city has already gone through that process.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions remotely or from the public or in person? Looks like we have an in-person comment. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Eric Peterson, and those who know me, my interest in Vision Zero probably goes back to before anybody in this room besides me heard about this. And I've had a number of friends killed or seriously injured in cycling crashes. And I've been hit by cars on 2 continents, kind of ironically in Germany by an American driver. The best thing about Vision Zero is it works. And the best example I've got off the top of my head is Oslo, national capital, 650,000 person city. A couple years ago, they had zero pedestrian fatalities, 0 cycling fatalities, 1 motorist fatality. That's pretty good. A side issue on this is a component of Vision Zero frequently is roundabouts. And the reason roundabouts make it safer for cyclists is it lowers the speed gap. So a cyclist is going closer to the speed of the cars, which means it's safer. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public online? Do we have anybody online? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Amelia. Appreciate it. This is only a presentation, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Okay, the next item is Section 8, receive reports from transportation providers. Mr. Eads.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and directors. I'm Scott Eads. I'm the Caltrans District 5 Director, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today, this morning still. I believe it's this morning still. So I have actually a few items to get through here, so I'll try to be efficient with my time. First is we recently received news that our director, Tony Tavares, is intending to retire in May. So he just announced that last week. And so this is a governor-appointed position, and replacement has not yet been identified, at least announced. So we'll share that information as we have it. We're waiting to hear as well. Also, just I'm sure many folks are aware, but just as a reminder, 27 miles of Highway 1 will be closed on Sunday, the 27th for the Big Sur Marathon. So from 4 a.m. to 1 p.m., the highway will be closed. As again, this audience is well aware, this is a world-renowned event, draws participants from around the world. Nearly 10,000 athletes, thousands of spectators, and hundreds of volunteers. So really special event. Highway 1 will be closed from Big Sur Station to just past the finish line at Del Rio Road in Carmel. Update on Regent Slide. So as a reminder, Regent Slide is the final location as it stands right now that's keeping us from opening up Highway 1 all the way through the Big Sur coast. And it is a massive slide. It's been a challenge for us to move through that slide and to have it addressed in a timely manner. That relates to the height, the steepness, and the continued movement of the slide. It's continued to move about a foot a day, even as we're working. And we've had to retreat a few times now where we were working as close to the bottom of the slide as we could to move the material downhill, and then material started moving above us a couple times. So we have to, in those situations, continue to move up above the moving condition and try to move the unstable material out. So it's been a challenge, but that said, we have some innovative work that we're doing. We're excited to announce, we announced in a press release last week that we have now 2 dozers and an excavator that are equipped to be remotely controlled. And so that work is happening. It's been happening for a little while now. We wanted to make sure it was a reliable and effective tool, and it is proving to do so, or to be so. So it's providing an added measure of worker safety, and it's also provided an additional productivity in terms of being able to move material that we couldn't otherwise get to well because of worker safety. So we're excited about that announcement, and we're excited about the plan that we have. We do have a good plan, a clear plan for moving the material downhill. We are making progress. We're working every single day that we can in the daylight hours. And, we're continuing to move that material down slope. And we also announced last week as part of that press release that we anticipate that Highway 1 at this location will be closed through the summer. And we'll continue to provide updates as we have them. But it was becoming really clear that businesses really needed to know, are they, improving facilities? Are they staffing up? Are they purchasing material and supplies or not for the summer? And so we wanted to get that information out. And again, we'll continue to advance the work, and we'll provide reminders as often as we can. And we also are reminding folks every time we send out a press release that over 100 miles of the Big Sur coast are still accessible. You have to get there from the north or the south. You can't make it all the way through, but the Big Sur is a special place, and it's still available and open for visiting. Just have to be thoughtful about how you get there. Another announcement is the Castroville Improvement Project, which is really the heart of downtown Castroville. We've had a project that's been in the works for several years. It'll be making really tangible improvements in the downtown core on Merritt Street. It's providing new bike lanes, improved sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, added crossing opportunities, and new pavement throughout the entire project limits. A community meeting was held last week to it was at the Farmers Market and at the North County Recreational and Parks District Gym in Castroville to just provide updates to the community, let them know that construction is imminent. We expect to begin construction late May, perhaps in June. And so we'll provide updates, and we are working on a groundbreaking ceremony that will probably be late May or sometime in June. So we'll share information as that comes together, but an exciting project, and we're looking forward to beginning construction on that. And on a bit of a somber note, Caltrans District 5 is going to hold our 35th annual Workers Memorial Ceremony on the front lawn at our offices in 50 Higuera and San Luis Obispo on April 30th at 10 a.m. If anybody's interested in participating, it's open to the public. It turns out that Caltrans has lost 194 workers in the line of duty working along the side of the highway. And we lost another last year. So this is this annual ceremony is a somber and important reminder for our staff that we need to be careful when we're working on the side of the highway and next to live traffic. And then the last point that goes along with the prior is it turns out that this is National Work Zone Awareness Week. So this week we're in the middle of it, National Work Zone Awareness Week. That's designated by FHWA. And this year's theme is Respect the Zone so we all get home. And it underscores, the critical nature for driving safely through work zones, and for the workers that are there to be really work zone aware of the conditions that they're working in. And so FHWA is urging drivers to take the following actions to improve work zone safety for everyone. So we've all heard these, but it's a good reminder: avoid distractions when you're driving through work zones, obey the speed limits, be aware of the workers that are out there doing the work, trying to improve the facility or maintain the facility. Watch for pedestrians and bicyclists who still need to move through those work zone areas in many cases. Expect narrower lanes, lane shifts, visual obstructions, and the need for longer braking distances. And where you can, avoid the work zones and pay attention to the signs on the work zones. So that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the update. Any questions? Thank you again. We'll move on to the next provider, Monterey Peninsula Airport. Mr. Merla.
I'm here. Nothing to report, except we did select a contractor for the new terminal project, and we hope to break ground on that in the next few months.
Thank you, Mr. Merla. We'll move on to Monterey Salinas Transit, Mr. Sidorik.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few items. This month, MST is celebrating 10 years of collecting Measure Q funding. Measure Q was first passed in 2014, the first countywide sales tax measure of any kind to be passed in Monterey County. And since that time, we've provided about 2.5 million trips on MST rides, our senior and veteran shuttle buses, discounted taxi trips, as well as reimbursed trips made by volunteers for seniors, veterans, and persons with disabilities in our county. We're also happy that our board awarded a contract and will be kicking off a planning study for the LSL Corridor Bus Rapid Transit and Salinas Transit Center relocation in Salinas. So that's going to be a big project and our next step in regional bus rapid transit throughout Monterey County. And finally, we are announcing on May 1st, we'll be having an event at the Salinas Transit Center with the County of Monterey Health Department, kicking off our partnership of having Narcan dispensers provided by the county at both the Salinas Transit Center in downtown Salinas, as well as at the Marina Transit Exchange. There's already a Narcan kiosk at the Monterey Transit Plaza in Monterey provided by the city. So that's helping us help the community with the worsening opioid problems in our county. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sidorik or any comments? If not, looks like we have Mr. Frisbee from the Monterey Bay Air Resources District. Floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. Our motor vehicle emission reduction grant program was approved by our board this month. Provides grants for replacement of medium-duty electric vehicles, for example, street sweepers or refuse haulers for public agencies, building electric vehicle charging stations, and our electric vehicle incentive program for light-duty vehicles purchases. Applications for the medium-duty fleet electrification and EV infrastructure opens up on May 1st. So we'll be reaching out to public agencies in the 3-county area to solicit applications for that program. We have a new electric vehicle charge station installed by EV Range. It's actually opening today. It's located at Davis Road, North Davis Road in Salinas by the Walmart. It's right off of Highway 1. So it serves the Highway 1 corridor. I'm sorry, 101 corridor. It's a 4-dispenser, 8-port station, 180 kilowatts per dispenser. So it's a pretty fast station. We're trying to get more infrastructure out there in the region so that more people will adopt electric vehicles. The funding was from the state of California. It's pass-through funds. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. I saw a comment pop up from Board District 1. Was that? Okay. So any other questions or comments? If not, I'll move on to item number 9, reports on meetings attended by board members at TAMC's expense as required by state law.
We're not aware of any meetings to report.
Thank you. And item number 10, executive director's report.
Just one quick item on the dais is a flyer for the North Monterey County participatory budgeting. The elections are kicking off on April 27th and through May 10th. The community is encouraged to vote on their preferred projects as part of this, as part of the Safe Routes to School planning for North County. So if, please share this with anyone who you know that lives or works or goes to school in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mook. Item number 11 is any announcements or comments from TAMC members on matters that they wish to put on future TAMC agendas. Are there any here? If not, we'll adjourn to the closed session here. Before we adjourn to the closed session, any public comment on the closed session matters? And there are 2 in here. One is TAMC versus City of Marina, and the other is Museum of Handcar Technology LLC versus TAMC. Seeing none, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you.